A man walks into a crowded room. Everywhere he turns, there are women competing for his attention, laughing a little too loudly at his jokes, brushing their hair back in rehearsed gestures, leaning closer than they should. He's surrounded by beauty, charm, and voices that all beg to be heard. On the surface, he has endless choices. 1,000 doors he could walk through. And yet, his mind is not here. Because somewhere in the corner of that very room, there is a woman who isn't competing. She doesn't rush to fill the silence with chatter. She doesn't angle her body to lure him in. She isn't even looking at him, not really. Her presence is subtle, unbothered, even quiet. And in that quiet, something extraordinary happens. He cannot stop noticing her. It is not what she does that pulls him in, it is what she doesn't do. While others push, she withdraws. While others cling, she releases. While others fight for his attention, she leaves a haunting absence that forces him to lean forward, to wonder, to obsess. This is the paradox Carl Jung understood so well, that silence is not emptiness, but presence. A magnetic force that cannot be faked. Silence can be more seductive than 1,000 words because it awakens something deeper in the male psyche, the shadow he tries to ignore, the insecurities he tries to hide, the hunger he cannot put into words. Think about it. Why do men often chase the woman who ignores them? Why do they dream about the one who walked away without explanation, rather than the one who stayed and argued? Why is it that in a world full of noise, it is often the quietest woman who leaves the loudest echo in a man's memory? It's because silence creates a mirror. When she does not explain herself, he begins to project his own fears and fantasies onto her. When she does not justify her worth, he is forced to measure his own. When she withholds words, he fills in the blanks with his imagination, and often, his imagination makes her larger, grander, and more irresistible than she could ever appear through explanation. Jung would call this projection, the unconscious act of assigning one's inner world onto another. And the woman who masters silence doesn't just avoid drama, she becomes the stage upon which his own desires and insecurities play out. So here's the mystery I want you to sit with as we begin. What is it about silence that grips a man's psyche in ways words never could? Why is it that one subtle, silent act can make him choose you above all others, even when he has 1,000 options? In the next moments, we will step into the psychology of silence through the lens of Carl Jung, uncovering why this invisible force has the power to haunt a man, shape his desire, and make him see you as unforgettable. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing a woman can say is nothing at all. Carl Jung once wrote that silence is never just the absence of words, it is a kind of presence, an energy that can fill a room more powerfully than speech ever could. For most people, silence feels uncomfortable. We rush to fill it with noise, with reassurance, with explanations. But a woman who knows how to sit in silence without flinching, without scrambling to fill the gaps, communicates something rare: strength. Here's why this matters so much in relationships, especially with men. When a woman does not explain herself, when she doesn't offer endless reassurances or chatter to smooth over every pause, she creates a vacuum. And nature abhors a vacuum. That silence doesn't stay empty, it gets filled. But who fills it? The man does. With his own thoughts. With his own insecurities. With his own longing. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a man and a woman at dinner. The restaurant is softly lit, glasses clinking in the background, conversation flowing around them. He is used to women laughing nervously, talking over themselves, trying to impress. But this woman? She is calm. She speaks when she wants to, but she doesn't rush. And then, in the middle of the meal, there's a pause. She doesn't panic. She doesn't ask if he's okay. She simply sits there, graceful, composed, looking at him with quiet presence. Now watch what happens. His mind begins to race. Did I say something wrong? Is she bored? What is she thinking? Why doesn't she feel the need to fill this silence like everyone else does? And in that very moment, without lifting a finger, she shifts the balance of power. Her silence forces him into reflection. It makes him work harder for her attention. It makes him chase, not because she played games, but because she held space in a way few women dare to. This is the psychology of silence. It turns the mirror back on him. While words often distract, silence reveals. And a woman who can wield silence with elegance becomes unforgettable, because she awakens parts of him he cannot silence within himself. Carl Jung believed every man carries a shadow, the hidden part of himself that he would rather deny. In this shadow lives his fear of rejection, his insecurity about not being good enough, and the fragile ego he tries so hard to protect. Most of the time, men cover these feelings with confidence, charm, or even arrogance. But a woman's calm, unshakable silence? That's what pulls the shadow out of hiding. Here's how it plays out. He sits across from her, studying her face. He tells a story, waiting for laughter. He makes a joke, waiting for validation. But she doesn't rush to flatter him, doesn't scramble to prove she's impressed. Instead, she simply listens, offering no easy reward. Her silence is not cold, it's steady, almost serene. And in that pause, something begins to stir inside him. His shadow whispers, "What if I'm not enough? Why doesn't she respond like the others? Why can't I read her?" The mask of his ego begins to crack. The charm he uses so easily with others suddenly feels powerless in front of her presence. Here's the paradox: while her silence unsettles him, it also fascinates him. He is both threatened and drawn in. Because in that stillness, she becomes a mystery, and the male psyche cannot resist a mystery. The more he cannot grasp her, the more his thoughts circle back to her. She occupies his mind not because she gave him validation, but precisely because she withheld it. Jung called this dynamic projection. In her silence, he projects both his fears and his desires. She becomes the canvas for everything unresolved within him, his longing for acceptance, his dread of failure, his hunger for a woman who doesn't need him but chooses him. So as he looks at her, waiting for approval that never comes, he finds himself caught in a loop. Her silence doesn't push him away, it pulls him deeper. Now, she is no longer just the woman across the table. She is the unanswered question that keeps echoing in his mind long after the night ends. And that is the power of silence, it awakens the shadow he cannot escape. Most women have been conditioned to believe that words are their strongest weapon, endless explanations, reassurances, and conversations that smooth over every silence. Society tells them, if you want to keep his interest, keep talking. Keep proving. Keep pleasing. But here's the secret Carl Jung understood: the more words you give, the less power they carry. Words can soothe, yes. They can persuade. But too many words dissolve into noise, and noise never leaves a mark. Now picture this. A woman sits with a man who is used to being admired. Other women fill the air with stories, laughter, constant reassurance: "You're amazing. You're so funny. You're so different from other men." And he enjoys it, until it becomes predictable. The more they talk, the more he feels certain he has them figured out. The mystery dies, and with it, his hunger. But then, he meets her. She listens more than she speaks. She doesn't rush to convince him of her worth. She doesn't feel the need to explain her past, her choices, or her every thought. When she does speak, her words are deliberate, chosen, rich with meaning. And when she is silent, she radiates presence without apology. This is where psychology turns into magnetism. Jung explained that mystery is what awakens projection. When a woman doesn't give everything away through words, a man's mind begins to fill the silence with his own imagination. He projects his desires, his fears, his hopes onto her. He cannot stop thinking about her, not because she said something extraordinary, but because she didn't say enough. And here lies the paradox: most women overshare because they fear being misunderstood. But the woman who doesn't rush to correct or defend herself allows him to wonder. And wondering is the birthplace of obsession. Her silence strengthens her aura because it refuses to be consumed. Words can be dissected, debated, forgotten. Silence? It lingers. It unsettles. It pulls him into deeper thought. This is why silence feels like power to a man. It denies him easy certainty, forcing him into pursuit. He is no longer just a man enjoying attention, he is a man haunted by a question he cannot answer. And that question is her. There is a reason why silence, paired with withdrawal, feels more powerful than any loud argument ever could. Most people believe that fighting loudly, slamming doors, or unleashing words will leave the strongest impression. But in reality, it is the quiet exit, the woman who leaves without explanation, that haunts the male psyche far more deeply. Carl Jung taught, what you resist, persists. When you fight, when you shout, when you try to force someone to understand your pain, you feed their resistance. The louder you push, the more their ego digs in. But when you withdraw silently, when you offer no resistance at all, something unexpected happens: you leave a void. And it is that void which keeps echoing in his mind. Picture this. A man believes he has the upper hand. Arguments come, and he expects tears, pleading, explanations. He expects her to resist leaving, because that resistance feeds his ego, proof that she cares, proof that she cannot live without him. But one day, instead of fighting, she simply walks away. No long speeches. No dramatic closure. Just quiet footsteps fading into the distance. At first, he feels relief. His ego tells him, good. She's gone. I won. But then the silence begins to stretch. No calls. No messages. No attempts to return. And suddenly, the very thing he thought he wanted, the absence of resistance, becomes unbearable. Her silence doesn't just remove her presence from his life, it forces him to face himself. Without her words to argue against, without her energy to push back on, he is left alone with the echo of what he has lost. And the most haunting thing of all? He has no explanation. No final words to dissect, no closure to soothe him. Only the memory of her presence, and the emptiness of her absence. This is why the silent withdrawal is unforgettable. A loud fight can be dismissed as anger. But a quiet departure? That is power. It is the mystery of silence stretched to its highest form, the refusal to resist, which forces him to wrestle not with her, but with his own shadow. And that shadow never lets him forget her. Silence in love is not weakness. It is strategy. A woman who knows when to hold her tongue, when to withhold her words, carries a power that unsettles and seduces at the same time. Because silence, when used with intention, forces a man to confront himself in ways that noise never could. Carl Jung often reminded us that the unconscious speaks in what is not said, in the pauses, in the shadows, in the spaces between words. And that is where a woman's silence becomes irresistible. Think of 3 moments when silence speaks louder than any sentence. Silence after an argument. Most women argue to win, to prove a point, to defend themselves. But the mature woman knows this: silence after an argument has more impact than any clever comeback. When she doesn't fight to be right, she denies his ego the satisfaction of resistance. Suddenly, he is left replaying his words in his own head, wondering if he went too far, questioning if he has just pushed her away. Her silence becomes the mirror of his conscience. Silence when he tests you. Every man, whether knowingly or unconsciously, tests a woman, through teasing, pulling away, or provoking jealousy. The average woman reacts, panics, explains. But the woman who stays quiet, calm, unbothered, communicates something far more powerful than words: I am not shaken by you. My value is not defined by your test. That silence radiates allure. Instead of her chasing him, his mind starts to chase her. Silence when he underestimates you. There are moments when a man might dismiss her, overlook her strength, or take her presence for granted. The immature response is to demand recognition. But the wise woman knows, the greatest respect is earned in stillness. She doesn't announce her worth, she embodies it. Her silence is not submission, it is confidence so unshakable that it doesn't need defending. And in time, he cannot ignore it. This is the art of strategic silence in love, knowing when words weaken and when silence strengthens. Each quiet moment is not absence, but presence. It is the reminder that she holds herself with such depth that no reaction is necessary. And that, paradoxically, is what draws him closer, because her silence forces him to listen, not to her words, but to his own restless heart. It's strange, isn't it? The loudest voices in the room are often forgotten, but the one who sits in quiet confidence lingers in the memory like a haunting melody. Men may be dazzled for a moment by noise, beauty, or charm, but it is silence, the rare, self-assured silence, that transforms fleeting attraction into obsession. Carl Jung spoke of the anima projection, the way a man unconsciously projects his hidden desires, fears, and longings onto a woman. And here is the secret: the quieter she is, the more space she leaves for his unconscious to paint her in the colors of his own fantasy. In her silence, she becomes not just a woman, but a mirror of his soul. Think of it like this. A woman who constantly talks, explains, and justifies herself leaves no mystery. She fills the air, and with it, she fills his imagination. But the one who doesn't fight for attention, the one who knows her presence speaks louder than her words, becomes unforgettable. Why? Because he has to wonder. He has to fill in the blanks. He has to imagine who she is, what she feels, and why she doesn't need his validation. The room is full of laughter, conversation, and noise. Everyone is competing to be seen, to be heard. But in the corner sits a woman, elegant, composed, listening more than she speaks. She doesn't interrupt, doesn't try to prove herself. Yet when the night ends, it's not the loud voices he remembers. It's her. The quiet one who left space for mystery. The woman whose silence forced him to project his own longing onto her. This is how silence turns into obsession. Not because she withheld affection as a game, but because she embodied presence without performance. Jung understood this: when a woman refrains from constantly giving herself away through words, she allows a man's unconscious to bind itself to her image. She becomes not just real, but symbolic, his fantasy, his ideal, his unspoken desire. And obsession is born not from what she gives, but from what she refuses to explain. So, what is the silent act that makes him choose you above all? It isn't about withholding affection or playing games. It's about embodying a presence so strong that you no longer need words to prove your worth. When a woman can sit in her own silence, without chasing, without explaining, without begging, she becomes unforgettable. Carl Jung reminded us that silence is not emptiness, but presence. It's the quiet confidence that forces him to confront his own shadow, his own fears, his own desires. While others fight for attention with noise, you captivate with stillness. And in that stillness, he projects onto you everything he secretly longs for but cannot find in anyone else. This is why silence isn't absence, it's power. It lingers. It haunts. It makes him wonder when no one else crosses his mind. He may have 1,000 options, but none carry the weight of the woman who knows when not to speak. The women who try the hardest to be remembered often fade quickly. But the one who holds her silence with grace becomes the echo he can't escape. That is the silent act, the act of restraint, of mystery, of unshakable self-possession, that makes him choose you above all. So the next time you feel the urge to over-explain, to compete, to prove your value, pause. Remember that your silence has more magnetism than any words could. Because in the end, silence doesn't just attract him, it binds him. And that is your true power. If you've reached this point in the video, it means you've allowed yourself to dive into the psychology and mystery of silence, and how it becomes a force stronger than words. I hope you felt the depth of this message, and maybe even reflected on your own life and relationships. Now, if you found value in this, I invite you to take a moment to support the channel. First, don't forget to like this video. It may feel like a small action, but it tells me that you found this message meaningful. And when you click that thumbs up, it also helps more people, just like you, discover these insights and begin their own journey of growth and awareness. Second, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Each week, I bring you thought-provoking content inspired by Carl Jung's psychology, emotional wisdom, and the art of self-mastery. By subscribing, you're not just joining a channel, you're becoming part of a community of people who value deeper understanding of love, attraction, and human behavior. And don't forget to press the bell icon. That way, you'll always be notified when new content is released, so you never miss the next insight or powerful lesson. But perhaps the most important part is this: I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let me know. Which point in today's video resonated with you the most? Do you believe silence truly has the power to shift relationships and make someone choose you above all? And most importantly, how do you personally use silence in your own life, whether in love, friendships, or self-growth? Your voice matters, and your perspective often inspires not just me, but also other viewers who come here searching for clarity. Many times, someone reads a comment and realizes they're not alone in their experience. That connection is powerful. And finally, let me know what you'd like to see more of. Should I create a follow-up video diving deeper into the silent strategies women use in love? Or perhaps explore Carl Jung's teachings on the masculine and feminine psyche in more detail? Your suggestions guide this channel, and I truly value every single one. So once again, like, share, comment, subscribe, and press the bell. This is how we grow together, and how we continue exploring the deeper truths of psychology, relationships, and self-mastery. Remember, sometimes the most powerful act isn't what you say, but what you choose not to say. And that silent act may just be the one that changes everything.